It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it is great to have you in studio today. Megan Taylor with the National Weather Service in Belmont, also in studio today. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
Spring has sprung, and so we're going to look back at the winter, which we all remember very well because it has been one heck of a winter, especially, I want to say, the month of February. Not
Yes.
because it's the closest in my mind,
Right.
but because it's the most memorable of the months of winter. But I want you to look back a little further. Was our winter extraordinary?
Yeah,
Yeah?
it's been a really good winter. So it's not the wettest winter we've ever had, but it's been very good. Most places across northern Arizona are anywhere from 2 inches to 6 inches above average for precipitation through where we should be this time of year.
Wow.
So it's wet. It's been wet. Yeah.
You put out a graphic a week or so back, and I remember you guys have been like lead story in the news for over a month with the amount of precipitation and storms that have been rolling through the state. I mean, you nailed it. I think Brian Klimowski was in here last fall and gave us kind of the winter prediction and said that there was a El Nino.
Yes.
A weak El Nino in the Pacific, which could impact us and bring the storms down a little bit further south and across the state.
Yes. That's exactly what happened.
That's what happened, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it still is a weak El Nino, but it was very evident in February that that pattern is what helped the storm track come south and bring us all the moisture. So it's been an active season, thanks in part to El Nino. And it looks like El Nino is going to continue through the spring and actually maybe even through the summer. But that doesn't necessarily mean a wet spring and summer. El Nino is more linked with winter precipitation than it is with spring and summer.
Oh, okay.
So even though it's here, it may not be affecting the weather pattern as much as it did during the winter.
Okay, and I think we can get a little more into that in the second half of the show
Yeah.
because we're going back to winter because it was amazing. That graphic that I was talking about was about just what a difference a year makes. Was the graphic that you guys put out, and it showed it was showing the green bar for this year and then the orange bar for last year, and it's just astounding what the difference is. I know talking to you guys up there at the Weather Service, because every Friday I do call, but if there's a storm coming in, I typically call and get information about that too, because I always say that there's nothing to talk about. We can all talk about the weather together, so we've got that going for us. It has been one right after the other in terms of storms. But up until February, we were always like 10 to 12 inches behind what is considered normal for our winter. And February changed all of that.
Yeah, and really this year it started early. So our first snowfall up on the rim in Flagstaff was early October, the first week in October. That's early. It's about a month early for us. So it started pretty soon. December rolled around and it was kind of, the storms were favoring eastern parts of the state versus Flag. Everybody was still kind of wondering what the winter was going to bring, and then January and February it just got active and the rest of the state was really able to catch up. So all in all, a snowy winter. We're already above our seasonal snowfall, our average seasonal snowfall. So in Flagstaff we average about 100 inches, 102. We're at 115. And we usually still measure at least a few inches in April on average. So we're already doing really well, and that's common across really all of northern Arizona.
Wow.
Even the lower elevations are nearly double their average seasonal snowfall.
Do you guys get excited when you get stuff like this going on?
Yeah.
Kind of makes your day, right?
You bet, yeah.
I mean, sunny and warm and dry. I mean, okay. All right, yeah, that's what it is. But this is, I mean, very active. Okay, so can I read a few? I'm going to read a few numbers off that you guys put on your website. By the way, their website is NOAA.gov, NOAA.gov. So go there and you can find your way to Arizona, and all this information is right there. In the month of February, Flagstaff had their second snowiest February ever, with 71.3 inches of snow in just the month of February. So the 115 inches that you just spoke of A lot of it, the majority of it, fell in the month of February. Prescott had their 6th snowiest winter at 22.4 inches. That's even amazing. And then Payson, my wife is from Payson, and she was talking about how she remembers when she was a kid, winters were really good, but then they started to kind of drop off and weren't very good anymore. Payson had their snowiest February ever on record at 38 inches.
Yeah,
wow.
And just that storm alone, Flagstaff and Payson broke their all-time one-day snowfall records.
I remember that was a big deal. 35 inches?
35.9 inches in a 24-hour period in Flagstaff, and that was February 21st. Payson was, I think, right at 20 inches the next day, February 22nd. So both hitting their highest amount of snowfall in one day.
We're sitting pretty, and Upper Lake Mary was spilling into Lower Lake Mary, so all things are good. Now, the month of February did see some tragedy, and I always think of February back to the flooding of '93, where February we saw this great snow all winter long, and then the month of February came along, and we kept getting these tropical depressions coming up out of Mexico, the Baja, and it melted all that snow. We had flood after flood after flood, homes washed away, entire mobile home parks washed away along Oak Creek, and bridges disappearing. I know the Verde Bridge down here moved a whole inch, and they had to replace the entire Verde Bridge. So I remember that being the '93. But in February, I always think to myself, okay, this is when flooding typically occurs, because we do get that shot of warm rain on top of snowpack, and we saw that in February as well. Yeah,
and also typical of an El Nino year, they're not always very cold storms, and so we find ourselves with kind of a rain-snow mix, or like you're saying, even rain on snow up in the higher terrain. So we had several events this year that were rain in Flagstaff and or rain on top of previous snow. So the water levels were, especially in February, were elevated almost everywhere, but especially along and south of the rim, like Oak Creek, Verde River. So I think I saw a statistic that the Verde basically through the water year has been double its normal flow this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have dealt with some flooding. Luckily, it wasn't anything major comparable to '93. We're lucky we didn't see really heavy rainfall to lead to flooding like that. But we did see a lot of elevated water, low water crossings flooded and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I know the Verde was up here. My daughter lives in Oak Creek Canyon, so she had to leave a couple of times because it's a low water crossing getting out of there. So she was definitely forced down. So she's like, Dad, how much snow you got up there, because it's supposed to rain? And I said, just feet of it up here. You better run. No, but anyway, she was conscious of that all winter long too, especially again during the month of February. We got to take a quick break.
Okay.
All right. Megan Taylor with the National Weather Service in Belmont in studio today. Website is NOAA.gov. That's NOAA.gov. Countywide quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back.
Do you feel like people are avoiding you? Don't be a dreaded spreader. Protect yourself and those around you from flu. Here's 3 things you should do. Get a flu vaccine each year. Take everyday preventive actions to stop the spread of germs, like covering coughs and sneezes and washing your hands, and stay home if you're sick. If you do get the flu, contact a healthcare professional right away and take flu antivirals if prescribed. Don't be a dreaded spreader. Take 3 steps to fight flu.
Most of us want to make some type of difference in the lives of others. St. Jude does miraculous work.
The fact that no one has to pay, it's a place where everyone is treated as an equal.
Everybody is welcome here, and it doesn't matter, your religion or, what part of the world you're from, that just sort of all that is taken away. It just gives you some hope.
Yo siento que soy parte de esa bendición que ese niño recibió al irse a su casa ya sanado.
It's just a nice feeling to put your energy into something that really does genuinely make a difference in a child's life.
There's just no greater gift. If we have the ability to help, then we have a responsibility to help.
Mandalay Homes introduces the new Ion Series, a revolutionary new approach to home building innovation and energy management. Built on a foundation of industry-leading energy efficiency and sustainable building practices, the Ion Series home redefines how we use and manage renewable energy. Contact a Mandalay Home sales executive today to learn more, or visit one of our Ion Series communities throughout northern Arizona.
Welcome back to Countywide. Sitting down with the National Weather Service in Belmont, the meteorologist Megan Taylor in studio today. Just kind of recapping winter, then we'll look ahead at spring and summer. I don't know if we can necessarily predict spring and summer or the monsoon season, but we'll talk about it anyways. Anything else that really stands out from this winter? It was, other than the fact to say that it seems, you know, last year it was drought was the conversation, especially in the Four Corners region. Really bad up there. Are they better off right now, do you know, than they were?
They are still classified in drought, but they've had a good amount of precipitation. Maybe not as much as Coconino and Yavapai counties, but they've had a good year too, and so we're hopeful that it will improve. The
entire eastern side of the state seemed to be hurting pretty bad last year, but I know the Sholo's been getting some stuff, Greer's been getting stuff, White Mountains has been getting hit pretty hard lately. Yeah, so they're doing well too, not as well as Coconino and Yavapai. It seems like a lot of the storms really hit the rim, the western rim, pretty hard. So the eastern part of the state, they're still normal to a little bit above normal in terms of precip and snowpack, so they're doing well too, just not as impressive as the central part of the state. It's certainly pushed our wildfire season back, although we have had a few fires now. Oh yeah? Yeah, well, not big ones, but I know, like the Prescott Valley area, they've got the really tall dry grasses that the antelope love to be in. Yes. And they've had, they actually had a fire that they believe started from like a dragging chain or a dragging metal or, you know, whatever it was that flick cigarette out the window, whatever it may be, but it did start a brush fire on the side of the road. It was shortly after that big storm we had. Yeah. I remember now. You know, and last year you were talking about the eastern part of the state and how they were really dry and kind of suffering last year. This time last year, they were already in fire restrictions in parts of the White Mountains. Oh yeah, I don't know how many stories I'd done about wildfires already this time last year. It's crazy. So just to think that there are stations in the forest that still have several feet of snowpack. So we at least have that going for us, even if it's a dry spring. We at least have the snowpack and the moisture that's still soaking in. I should make a mention, too, that we'll have the Forest Service, Prescott National Forest and Coconino National Forest, in the show very shortly to talk about current conditions on the forest as well. But I know they've got to be breathing a sigh of relief as well, because you're right. Yes. Last year in the month of February, we were already seeing wildfires. They had started popping up at the southern end of the state, and they typically start to come up north. And sure enough, we were talking about that all the time. Fire, fire, fire. Ready, set, go was the big one last year. Yes, I remember. That was the big thing last year. All right, okay, so winter, we're going to put winter away. We might not be able to put our winter coats away and the boots and the shovels and all that stuff yet, because we still, I mean, is it July 4th the latest it's ever snowed in the Flagstaff region? I can't remember how late. We've had measurable snow through early to mid-June. Holy moly. Yeah. That is something else right there, right? I know we've had years with a Memorial Day storm of several inches of snow, so it's never out of the question, but it's pretty rare. It's nice, though. This time of year, it doesn't usually stick around for very long. It's gone pretty fast. Temperatures seem to rebound quickly. February is also very cold, too. Yes, it was. It was, let's see, I think the average temperature for Flagstaff was 25 degrees. Yeah, 25.8. 12th coldest in Flagstaff, 8th coldest in Prescott and Payson. So it was, and I think a lot of that had to do with just the frequency of storms. So a lot of years we have a big storm and then a few weeks of dry weather and then maybe another storm. This year it was almost every week something was coming through. And multiples. Yes. They weren't even taking a break. They were like, oh, I'm going to piggyback on that guy, and then we're going to piggyback on that guy over there. Yes. There was the one week where we had like 3 storms come through, and the big one was the big one that we got. Yes, yeah. And even that one was almost like a 1-2 punch kind of storm. So it's just been an active year. The storm track has been south over much of the southwest through basically the whole season.
So.
Do you feel bad that you missed our big storm because you were off on vacation somewhere
I do.
pleasant?
I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world, but as a meteorologist, it's kind of hard to miss a record breaker.
It was an unbelievable day, I can tell you that much. You know, snow going past my waist at 6'6" is something to walk through and see and envision.
Yes.
For sure. Rainfall, Cottonwood and the Verde Valley, tons of rain. Everyone is just, I don't know how else to sum that up, that everybody is just wet and above average. And I guess we're getting ready for wildfire season is what we should be getting ready for next. I'm sure you guys have been making some preparations for that as well.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's tough to say what the spring is going to have in store for us. It does look like this active pattern continues at least through the end of March. We're seeing, the pattern looks to continue through the end of this month. After that, it's a little tough to say. Spring historically is not the most accurate time for climate predictions. So the outlooks are saying maybe a slight chance of a warmer spring. Not much of an indication in terms of where we're going to be with precipitation. Maybe a slight favoring for eastern Arizona to be wetter than average, but that's about all we can say.
But we do know one thing for sure about spring. It's going to be windy.
Exactly.
It's going to be windy.
Yes.
Boy, what is it about spring in Arizona that it is so dang windy?
It's a good question. So spring is a transition season, right? We've had this jet stream patterns over the southern part of the United States for a long time. And spring is that transition when it's basically moving northward. And so we're still in the pattern where we can get low pressure systems coming this far south. And that's really what brings the wind. And we also have a lot of mixing, so turbulent mixing in the atmosphere.
Okay.
And as we get into the warmer season, we get mixing up even higher into the atmosphere. So we start mixing stronger winds down to the ground. Couple different reasons there, but it's almost inevitable spring will be windy.
And that's something that I think everyone needs to keep in their minds too. Although we've been extremely wet, we are going to get these really, really strong winds. And it sucks the moisture out of everything, especially the tall grasses. And I think that's why we see those fires start in the southern part of the state where they've already got their spring flowers and it's in the 70s and hitting the 80s. And up here we're still cold and snow covered and very wet. But that's going to transition up the state as we see it do every year.
Yeah. And so what we can hope for is kind of a cooler and maybe a little wetter spring, and that would mitigate fire season. But if it's not, and if it's warm, which it's looking like it might be, and dry and windy, it's just going to cure those fuels really quickly.
Okay. Well,
so it's all about spring.
We're already at least 2 months without the wildfire season we had last year. So that's a good thing. But May and June, April, we're going to start to see things start to heat up. May, it really starts to get warm. And then June is our hottest month, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and the hottest and driest month. So we've got free dump days going on all over the place, slash removal, defensible space stuff. All that is being talked about right now and will be continued to talk about right up until the monsoon arrives as well.
Yes.
We should probably take another break.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Megan Taylor with the National Weather Service is in studio today. NOAA.gov. That's NOAA.gov. Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
What does it look like when a life is truly changed?
I feel a sense of accomplishment because I built a house. This house has brought us financial independence.
It's a great place to raise a family.
Strength, fuerza. When I look back where we've come from to where we are today, it makes my heart very happy.
Potential. Potencia.
For me, this house means all of us together.
Sorry. Together.
Security.
Security.
Every family dreams to have their own house. This house changed our lives.
Habitat for Humanity is at work in your community and around the world. Through shelter, we empower.
We develop quality citizens who keep our core, our country, and our communities side by side on the winning side. Not for glory, but for honor. For a code that isn't written or spoken, but lived. It's what we do. It's who we are. It's the battle cry of our fighting spirit. Battles won. See all the battles Marines fight to win at marines.com.
Welcome back to Countywide. Just a few minutes left in the program. A couple other things going on in the National Weather Service. If you're not familiar with their website, you should be. And I would highly suggest following them on Twitter or Facebook or both. I follow you guys on Twitter. I don't have Facebook, but I have Twitter. So I follow you there. So I've got the weather updates coming in constantly. And it's amazing to see an update come in and say, okay, there's a band of moisture currently crossing I-17 to I-40 and blah, blah, blah. And these places are going to be impacted. And I think during the big storm at one point in time, I saw 3 to 4 inches of snow falling an hour.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm doomed. I'm going to have to stay in town and make sure I can get to where I'm going.
Social media is nice because we kind of have that leeway to communicate some information that you maybe won't get from our routine products.
And you guys are working closer with, after that last storm too, with ADOT.
Yeah.
You've got some people working closer with ADOT as well, so that roads and weather kind of hug each other right down the road. It's nice.
We're constantly in communication with them throughout the winter. We're kind of briefing, giving updates all the time, so they're pretty well aware of what's coming.
So you got ADOT in the winter, and in the summer, you're with all the Forest Service people. Talking about wildfire. The weather's important. You got to know it. You got to know it. Always keep track of the weather. There's a couple of things. They have a student volunteer program going on. So if you love the weather and you want to know more about the weather, this would be a good opportunity for you as well. How to apply a little more unpaid positions. Okay, so this is through Andy. Andy at the Weather Service is taking care of this. So if you contact the Weather Service, you're going to want to talk to Andrew Taylor about that. But it's like college students entering their junior or senior year, graduate students, recent graduates also be considered. And then what are they going to be doing? Just kind of following you guys around and seeing just what it's like to be a meteorologist?
Kind of like an expanded job shadow and a way to get some experience for what it might be like in the Weather Service. So if it's someone that it's particularly geared towards someone that might be interested in meteorology, but doesn't have to be. You know, we have computer specialists, IT people, electronics technicians. So we have a lot going on. If it's something that you think you might be interested in spending some time and learning about what we do, then highly encourage you to apply.
I would love to work in the weather. I love calling you guys and talking all the time. And then there's the other thing too. This is something that I think it's Tony, right? Tony Merriman. It's always working on this. The warning coordinator.
Yeah.
Warning coordinator
coordination meteorologist.
Yeah, that's it. Tony. Tony Merriman, great guy. He does these every year as well, and they're looking for people who, like you and I, who see the monsoon coming, and we get on, we communicate with the National Weather Service, right? So let's say I've got golf ball size hail coming down in my backyard, mountain air. I say, hey, Megan, this is what I got going on right now. Click, here's a picture. This is coming down right now.
Yes. Exactly.
And you guys want this information coming in from all over the place because it obviously benefits you.
Yes. So it helps us know what's happening on the ground. So we have, a lot of tools like radar and satellite where we're watching storms, trying to figure out what's happening. But getting a report of severe hail confirms what we're seeing with our fancy tools. So it's really helpful for us to know exactly what's going on the ground. We kind of call our spotters our ground truth.
Right.
So, and it's very important for not only our warning operations, but verification as well. So knowing if we warn on a storm, was it severe or not? So it's really, really helpful. And it's anybody. It's just a volunteer program. Anyone that's interested in the weather, observes severe weather, just call and report it to us.
Right.
Super easy.
And I think in the years past, Tony has been really key on trying to get more members of the Navajo Nation involved.
Yes.
Because there are some really remote areas out there that it's just really hard to get that information from. So if you're, especially if you're on the Navajo Nation, I know the Weather Service would love to hear from you. And any kind of remote area in the state that doesn't get a whole lot of coverage would be probably super great.
Especially
for you guys to
people that live on like a, you know, a ranch or somewhere that's outside of town where you don't have a lot of people clustered together.
Right.
Super helpful.
Megan, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
An
Paul.
amazing winter. We all feel better about our spring and summer. Hopefully they go just as well. That's Megan Taylor, National Weather Service in Belmont. NOAA.gov is the website. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.